day, everyone. By the way, my name is Mika May Ayobedaza from B.ED Generalist. And so for today's summary, I will be discussing about the topics from P.ED.1, the Child and Adolescent Learner, according to the weekly concept digest uploaded to the VLE. Human development and the characteristics of human development from a lifespan perspective. Human development. What is human development? It refers to the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development throughout the lifespan. The physical development involves the growth and changes in the body and brain, the senses, motor skills, health, and wellness. The cognitive development involves the learning, attention, memory, thinking, language, reasoning, and creativity. And the psychosocial development involves the emotions, personality, and social relationships. In human development, there are characteristics of a lifespan perspective. And what are the characteristics of lifespan perspective? It involves the development is lifelong, the development is multidimensional, the development is plastic, the development is contextual, and the development involves growth, maintenance, and regulation. The stages of development and developmental tasks. The developmental tasks involve the prenatal period, infancy, early childhood, middle and late childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late childhood. Teachers as consumers and users of research, teachers as researchers, the scientific method, research design, and data gathering technique. Teachers as consumers and users of research. Research gives teachers important knowledge to use in decision making for the benefit of the learners and their families. The scientific method is one of the important principles in research. The research design provides us with valuable information about the child and adolescent development. Data gathering techniques involves the observation, sociological measures, standardized interviews and questionnaires, and life history records. Psychosexual theory of development. The three components and personality adjustment, which is Freud also conceptualized the personality as having three parts, and it includes the ID, ego, and the superego. Psychosexual theory of development. Oral stage, 0 to 1U. In the first stage of personality development, the libido is centered in a baby's mouth. Anal stage, 1 to 3 years. The libido is now becomes focused on the anus, and the child derives great pleasure from defecating. Phallic stage, 3 to 5 or 6 years. Sensitively now becomes concentrated in the genitals, and masturbation becomes a new source of pleasure. Latency stage, 5 or 6 to puberty. No further psychosexual development takes place during this stage. Genital stage, puberty to adult. This is the last stage of Freud's psychosexual theory of personality development and begins in puberty. Cognitive theory of development. There are basic cognitive concepts, which are the schema, assimilation, accommodation, and equilibration. The stages of cognitive development. Stage 1. Sensory motor stage. The first stage corresponds from birth to infancy, and this is the stage when a child who is initially reflexive in grasping, sucking, and reaching becomes more organized in his movement and activity. Stage 2. Pre-operational stage. It covers from about 2 to 7 years old, roughly corresponding to the preschool years. Stage 3. Concrete operational stage. This stage is characterized by the ability of the child to think logically, but only in terms of concrete objects. Psychosocial theory of development. Theory of moral development. Kohlberg believed that moral development depended on moral reasoning and was learned in three levels, and these levels are pre-conventional reasoning, conventional reasoning, and post-conventional reasoning. Vygotsky sociocultural theory. Vygotsky sociocultural theory grew from the work of seminal psychologist Lev Vygotsky, who believed that parents, caregivers, peers, and the culture at large were responsible for developing high-order functions. Social interaction. Vygotsky theory was more social, and for him, the social environment or the community takes on a major role in one's development. Cultural factors. Vygotsky believed in the crucial role that culture played in the cognitive development of children. Language. It is the opening the door for learners to acquire knowledge that others already have. Zone of proximal development. It recalls your answer into activity, and it can be shown that skills cannot be learned instantly for the young ones. Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory. Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model. Structure of environment. Microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem. Physical development of infants and toddlers. Cephalocaudal trend. It is the postnatal growth from conception up to 5 months when the head grows more than the body. It is also where the infants or the early childhood learn to use their upper limbs before their lower limbs. Proximodistal trend. It is the prenatal growth from 5 months to birth when the fetus grows from the inside of the body outwards, and it refers to development of motor skills. Height and weight. A baby grows quickly once they adjust to sucking, swallowing, and digesting. In the first 5 months, an infant or a young child increases the length by about 30%, and the weight of a baby usually becomes 3 times throughout the first year, and in the second year of life, it slows down. Brain development. The brain starts to grow before the birth and continues into the early childhood. In the first 2 years of life, it is the spreading connections of dendrites to each other. Myelination or myelinization. It begins in prenatal and continues after the birth, and it is a process by which the axons are covered and insulted by layers of fat cells. It is where the process of myelination or myelization takes place. Motor development. It is where the infants and toddlers begin reflexes to gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Reflexes. The newborn baby has its basic reflexes, and when the baby starts to grow, the reflexes which are present at birth will become less within a few months. Sucking reflex. It begins when something touches the roof of an infant's mouth, which helps them latch on the bottle or breast. Rooting reflex. It is understood when an infant's cheek is stroked, the baby responds by turning his or her head in any directions and opens their mouth for feeding. Gripping reflex. The baby starts to grasp anything that is placed in their palm. Curling reflex. It is the baby's foot. When the inner sole of a baby's foot is stroked, the infant responds by curling his or her toes, and when the outer sole of a baby's foot is stroked, the infant will respond by spreading out their toes. Startle or moro reflex. The infants will respond through the sudden sounds or movements on their arms and legs, and they usually cry. Gallant reflex. The child responds through curving his or her body. Tonic reflex. It is where the tonic neck reflex is demonstrated in infants, which are placed on the infant's abdomens. Gross motor skills. It is where a child grows and develops his or her motor skills, which causes an excitement to their parents. Fine motor skills. It is the development of a child where they learn to write, draw, and many more to complete the task. It involves any activities with coordination and movements. Cognitive development of infants and toddlers. Sensory motor development. The children go through a period of dramatic growth and learning. Object permanence. The term object permanence is used to describe a child's ability to know that objects continue to exist even though they can no longer be seen or heard. Language development. There are a few of the important things your child might achieve in language development between the 3 months and 8 years. 3 to 12 months. The baby will most likely coo and laugh, play with sounds, and begin to communicate with gestures like waving. 12 to 18 months. The children often say their first words with meaning. For example, is dada. 18 months to 2 years. Their vocabulary has grown and they'll start to put two words together into short sentences. Socio-emotional development of infants and toddlers. Attachment. It is important for infants and toddlers to have an attachment to their parents because they develop their attachment to their parents. It is a relationship and social development through interacting with their parents. Temperaments. Temperament captures the way that infants and toddlers differ from each other and how they are able to express their personality traits as an infant and toddler. Supporting social emotional development for infants and toddlers. Activity level. It is all about the movement and body activity, regulatory or rhythmicity. It is the basic function of an infant and toddler such as sleeping, approach and withdrawal. It is how an infant and toddlers respond to a new situation, place or thing. Adaptability. It is how the infants and toddlers quickly or slowly adapts to change. Sensitivity. It is how the infants and toddlers are sensitive from touch, sounds, taste, and many more. Intensity. It is the energy level of infants and toddlers when expressing their moods. Mood. It is how the infants and toddlers feel pleasant and cheerful and change their behavior into a negative behavior. Distractibility. It is how an infant and toddlers easily lose focus on any activities because of the distractions such as the gadgets. Preschoolers' physical development. Brain connections in the preschool years. It is the brain development of young children where we can find interesting to the field of early childhood. From our science lessons, during our elementary or even in high school, it's been tackled that our brain is consist of numerous cells which is called neurons, which means it connects to each other to function. Synapses. There is also we call synapses. It is a cell connection or sometimes referred to as synapses connections. Language development. Children's language development develops as they easily to grow. As children go through, they can able to process their understanding and can able to absorb meaning after they hear the words. Language and social interaction. Vygotsky believed that young children can use the language as a tool of communication or to communicate properly. Theory of mind. It refers to the thoughts about how the individual's mental process work. Receptive language. Young children can able to understand the forms of communication, verbal and non-verbal, pre-reading and pre-match. Young children can able to match and identify objects, colors, shapes, and symbols. Pre-reading, pre-match. Young children can able to recite and recognize the alphabet and the new numbers in sequence as well. Cognitive development. Young children can able to sustain attention and can able to listen and be settled while listening to a story and turning over pages through a picture on the book. High order mental abilities. Young children develops basic concepts appropriate to object constancy, space, time, quantity, seriation, and it uses this as basis of understanding of the early childhood and how these things are related to the environment. Higher ordered mental abilities. Young children can able to understand the relationship between cause and effect. Episodic memory. Young children can able to remember or recall people whom children met, events, and places. Memory for concept-based knowledge, semantic memory. The child can able to memorize any words and can able to store in mind the verbal information. Higher order mental abilities or logical reasoning. The child can able to know and follow the logic of events and can able to complete a pattern without guidance of a guardian. Cognitive development of the preschoolers. Gross and fine motor development. Gross motor development. It describes the acquiring skills and is categorized into three groups: locomotor skills, non-locomotor skills, and manipulative skills. Locomotor skill. The locomotor skills describes as moving place to one another, and walking is one of the example of this, such as running, hopping, climbing, skipping, dodging, and creeping. Non-locomotor skills. The non-locomotor skills describes as staying in place, and one of the example of non-locomotor skills are swimming, bending, turning, and stretching. Manipulative skills. Manipulative skills describes as handling any objects using hands, feet, or other body parts. It includes projecting and receiving any objects such as dribbling, throwing, tossing, striking, kicking, catching, twirling, and bouncing. Fine motor development. In fine motor development, there are lots of skills that preschoolers can able to acquire. Fine motor development describes as learning or developing an ability that uses the smaller muscles in the arm, finger, and hands. Preschoolers' artistic development. Scribbling stage. Scribbling stage is the first stage of drawing in early childhood. Children begins with drawing any lines or large zigzag lines, which can be still develop any of the next stages. Pre-schematic stage. The drawing of an early childhood during this stage develops and easily for adults to recognize the drawings. Schematic stage. During the schematic stages, there are lots of scenes represented. Children may draw of what they're able to see, and from their experience, they're able to understand what they draw means.